Good morning, this is Brother Mike Watts for another Dayvotion, and the title of the day's message is Your Disappointments That God Can Turn Into Glory. Your disappointments that God can turn into glory. I think if you're watching this, I believe that all of us have had disappointments. I know I've had my share of disappointments. And you pray and pray and pray, and you ask God, to keep coming through, and then you keep getting let down. Maybe it's a turn down letter. Maybe it's a broken heart, through a relationship. Maybe it's a job you got turned down from. Maybe it's a school that you applied for and then a letter came and you got turned down. I think we've all been there of disappointments. But I'm reminded tonight of John chapter 11 when Jesus rose Lazarus from the dead. The disappointments that God can turn into glory. I want you to think about this. Mary and Martha was wanting Jesus to come right then, and before he had died, so he could be healed through this sickness. He dies. Goes to be in the tomb for 3 days. Jesus was not even there. Jesus wasn't even present. So as he comes into the city, there's upsetness and heartbreak, disappointment. Oh Lord, if you would have been here, none of this would have happened. And we question that. God, where are you at? But I want you to look at this in this part. Don't miss this morning. It goes on, it says now, verse 5, now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. When he had heard therefore that he was sick, he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was. He stayed there 2 more days and did not go yet. And then, in verse number 8, it says his disciples, verse number 11, he says, these things said he, and after that he said to them, our friend Lazarus sleeps. Then said his disciples, Lord, if he sleeps, he shall do well. The disciple says that he's basically sleeping, but Jesus wasn't talking about that kind of sleeping. Jesus said he was dead. So Jesus gets into the city. He goes down in verse number 20. Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him. But Mary sat still in the house. And said Martha unto Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother had not died. Martha is questioning it. Mary is in the house. She's complaining. She's mad. She's soaking in her sorrows. Listen, that's what the devil wants us to do. The devil wants us to soak in our sorrows when we've been let down. The devil wants us to be down and upset. But let me tell you something. When you let God work, the disappointments can turn into glory. And what happened? Jesus goes on later to the grave. He's been dead for 3 days, Lazarus has. And Jesus says, remove the stone. And Jesus says, Lazarus, come forth. And Lazarus came forth. The disappointment that Mary and Martha had, the disappointment the family had, the disappointment was turned into God's glory, and God got the glory. That reminds me today that when we get those letters, when we get that heartbreak, when we get those turn downs, when we let God work and we give it to God, God can turn that disappointment into something more beautiful that you ever could have imagined. We don't know what God's doing behind the scenes, but I'll tell you today, Jesus may be calling you out and say, come forth. Come forth. May God be with you today. Let God turn your disappointment into God's glory. Praise God. Love you guys.